I'm afraid I have some bad news. The infection will be taking over me shortly, but I should have enough time to talk about horror in video games and what makes it so unique.
Attention all citizens. Due to the citywide outbreak, you are advised to take shelter at the Raccoon City Police Station. Free food and medical supplies will be provided to everyone in need.
I am a huge fan of the horror genre. Some of my favorite movies of all time are from that category, like Alien, 28 Days Later, Get Out, Shaun of the Dead. All of those movies are doing a great job of immersing you into their world and making you actually care for the characters, and that's why you shrivel in your chair and snack anxiously while hoping that the main character will make it to the end. I mean, who doesn't want to experience an adrenaline rush while being in the safety of their own home? I know I do. And it's no different in video games. All of that media is working on stimulating your emotions and giving you that adrenaline boost while you are being in a controlled environment. I'm pretty sure that you won't want to be stuck in a small claustrophobic village while being haunted by some psychopathic killer, but playing a video game or watching a movie with the same premise would be okay and even fun for some people. You are aware that you're not in any actual danger because there is a degree of separation. You can clearly tell apart between what's happening on screen versus real life. I mean, you might still get nightmares like I had after my aunt showed me a vampire movie when I was like 5. Thanks. I hated it. But that's about it. With that in mind, when I was playing Alien Isolation a few months back, I remember being absolutely immersed in the game, but unfortunately I didn't have time to replay it for this video, so I'm probably not the best person to talk about it. Let me think for a second, do I know anyone who just recently completed it? Ooh, I have an idea.
In my opinion, what makes Alien Isolation so immersive, 3 things. Attention to detail, sound design, and the first-person perspective. The attention to detail in recreating the worlds of Alien. That first movie, one of my own personal favourites. The objects, the lights, the sort of giant consoles, the TV screens, recreating that aesthetic of engineers in space. It ain't perfect, but it works. In particular, the opening, when you come out of hypersleep, I was already happy I'd started to play the game at that point. The sound design, when the alien is following you, you can hear the dum dum, its footsteps. So cool. The sound the motion tracker makes, the way the ship you're going around, the Sevastopol, that moans and groans. It's fantastic. And of course, rounding it all out, the first person perspective, making you feel like you're right in the thick of it. So that's what makes Alien Isolation immersive to me.
When you're watching a movie, you're a passive observer. You might be invested in the main character and root for him and her, but you're still not the main protagonist. They are. If Bob is a character in a scary movie and he gets killed in there, as much as you care, you wouldn't say I died, you'd say Bob died. But in a video game, when you die, well, you did. Not Bob, not Alan, not Amanda, but you. I mean, this is ultimately what it comes down to. That's why when you play a video game, you're a lot more invested, and this is the reason why some people don't mind watching a horror game stream but can't play it themselves. Okay, we did make some pretty decent points so far, but it's not a whole story just yet. In a game, you have to constantly make active decisions to put yourself at risk. For example, I decided to play Outlast 1 and 2 for the sake of this video. I mean, how scary can they possibly be, right? I wanted to actively avoid making choices and progressing forward, while also being curious enough to see the story unfold, so it motivated me to press on. But not going to lie, I always felt dread while slowly opening a door or moving through a creepy environment, which, oh my god, can we talk about it for a second? Being absolutely defenseless in a dark asylum, while your only way to see is by using the night vision of your camera, which has an extremely limited battery life, applies pressure to move quickly, but the sounds around you just keep freaking you out, making it so effective in building that feeling of fear and unease. And what didn't really help my situation was the fact that I was playing with my headphones on, lights off, and during the night. Stellar move, but hey, I chose it because I wanted to be immersed. And that is something that you can only experience in a game because of its interactive nature. Also, I wanted to play PT as a part of the research, but because I didn't have a PS4 when it was released, I never added it to my library, and I'm not buying a PS4 with it pre-installed, so that's unfortunate. But there's a limit to how much I can endure anyway. Speaking of enduring things, I think that the most important aspect to get right in any game, but especially in a horror one, is stakes. When the only risk of being killed is a cheap jump scare and you can start over immediately without losing much or any progress at all, then you end up being desensitized to what's going on around you. And I'm not saying that the stakes have to be extreme like the insane difficulty in Outlast, because frick that, but there should be stakes nevertheless. I think that the perfect example of that would be the hardcore difficulty in Resident Evil 2 Remake, a game that I absolutely love. On hardcore difficulty you don't have checkpoints, which is not a big deal on its own, because you have typewriters where you can save your progress scattered throughout the police station, and they look pretty close together. That is, until you realize that because of the layout of this place, it takes a while to traverse between them, and you have zombies that can kill you in 2 hits roaming the corridors. You don't have enough ammo to kill all of them. Okay, technically you do. You are constantly stalked by Mr. X who you can't kill, and on top of that, you have to use ink ribbons to save your progress, which you have to find in the first place, and you have a limited supply of them. Because of all that, you are presented with some dynamic choices that have impactful consequences. Like, if you left gunpowder in one of the rooms because you didn't have enough inventory at the time, should you go back for it or not? Because it might be worth it for later. Ammo is pretty limited as is, but you might also get killed or waste a ton of resources getting it. And when do you save, now or after you're done backtracking? This is what makes it so damn good and so much better than just watching a movie. Add some creepy atmosphere, slow moving zombies, and gameplay that encourages you to take your time with shooting, or even avoiding conflicts altogether, instead of just killing everything that moves. Mix it all up and you get a recipe for a survival horror game where you are always on edge and always feel like you just barely made it out alive because of the right choice you made. And this is what makes it so freaking powerful. And I think that everything I mentioned so far neatly ties into one feeling that can only truly shine in a video game: vulnerability. The more immersed you are, the more real it feels. The more choices you have to actively make, the more invested you are becoming. The higher the stakes, the higher is your adrenaline level, and if you don't feel vulnerable, all of that simply falls apart. That is why Alien Isolation worked so well, especially on the higher difficulties, while Alien Colonial Marines didn't. Now, don't get me wrong, I am not trying to say that horror games only work when you are unable to fight back, but what I'm saying instead is that it has to be tied into plot and pacing. Recently I played Dark Pictures' House of Ashes, and I think that it's the best game of the Anthology so far because the story and horror were balanced so well. And I'm not trying to say that House of Ashes was mind-blown or anything like that, but it did a decent enough job of balancing the characters, story, and pacing, and that's the reason I enjoyed it. Let's put it that way. If a game is constantly trying to scare you by using chase sequences and or jump scares like Outlast 2 does, without giving you any breathing room and without slowly building tension in between those peaks, eventually stop caring. But on the other hand, if jump scares are used sparsely and strategically throughout the game and more focus is given to building suspense like in Alien Isolation, it makes them so impactful. House of Ashes was definitely not the scariest experience I ever had, not even close, but it had enough tense moments in the story to keep me on edge, and because of the nature of this game where if a character dies it's not a fail condition, and it's permanent unless you decide to perform chapter select, I was a lot more immersed and involved than I expected. Another game that did it right is The Last of Us, and you might say, come on Ilya, you're just looking for an excuse to talk about The Last of Us in every video, it's not even a horror game. Which I guess it's true, but you can't ignore the horror aspects of it, like the hotel basement sequence that slowly builds up the suspense through sound and environmental design. It takes a good 5 minutes before you even encounter your first infected, but by the time you do, your boss is probably twice the normal rate. There are no jump scares, no in-your-face gore imagery for a pure shock value, just a good level design. And those are the types of experiences that I cherish so much. Yeah, Outlast is spooky, but I'll take Resident Evil 2, Alien Isolation, or even House of Ashes over it any day of the week, because those are the types of experiences that you can only truly get in a video game. Funnily enough, I never really played horror games as a kid, so I'm not really nostalgic about them, but if you want to know about video game nostalgia and what makes those games so special, you should check out this video right here. Thank you for watching.